Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'll be creating a basic default Bootstrap container. In a previous video, I had set up two basic Bootstrap templates, one for the Bootstrap CDN and the other for local Bootstrap. So this is the directory I set up on my desktop, and this is the structure. I've got a CDN folder, and inside there I've got an index.html template which has the Bootstrap CDN, and inside the main project directory I've got a Bootstrap CSS file and also a Bootstrap JavaScript file which also contains jQuery and popper.main. I've also got an index.html file which is linked to the local Bootstrap files. I have opened up this folder on my desktop. I've opened it up in my text editor. I'm using the text editor called Visual Studio Code. So this is the main project folder. Inside there we have the folder called CDN, and inside there I've got an index.html file. This is the file that I'm going to be using for this video. So the template is all set up for Bootstrap CDN. I'm going to make some changes to this template. Where it's got the title, I'm going to remove this title that says Bootstrap and replace it with the title that says default container. I've changed the title to say default Bootstrap container on line number 11. I'm going to get rid of this h1 tag. I'm going to create a new div inside the body tag with a class of container. Since I already have Emmet embedded in Visual Studio, Emmet makes it easier to write HTML code. So to create a container, all I need to do is do a dot and then type in the name container and then press the tab key, and that has automatically created a div with a class called container. So I'm just going to separate the div. Inside this div, I'm going to add an h1 heading tag. So again, using Emmet, I just type in h1 and then I press the tab key, and that generates an h1 tag for me. So I'm just going to tab to separate the opening and closing tag and just enter some text for the heading. I also want to add a paragraph tag to the div. So I'm going to tab and then just type in the word P and press enter, and that generates a paragraph tag. So I'm just going to tab in between the paragraph to separate it, and I'm going to add some text. The default container I've created here contains an h1 heading tag and also a paragraph tag. So I'm going to open up this HTML document in my live server. So I'm going to right click in my editor and select open with live server. We can see the page with its content, but the container is not that obvious. So to make the container obvious, I'm going to add some custom CSS and then give the container a background color so that we can make it distinct and visible. All we can see at the moment is the h1 heading tag, which is this tag here on line number 15, and we can also see the content of the paragraph tag, which is on line number 16. I'm going to create a custom CSS file inside this folder here called CDN. So I've got the folder highlighted. I'm going to select new file and I'm going to call it style.css. So I'm going to create a CSS style for the container, which has a class called container. So if I go into the CSS file, so I just add the dot. The dot basically represents a class, and then I'll type in the name of the class. I have added some CSS properties to style the default container. On line number 2 here, I've added the padding top property. So if you look at the web browser here, basically what I'm saying is that I want there to be a space from the top of the browser. So I want to give a space of 20 pixels. And then I also want to create a space on the bottom of the container. So there's going to be a space above the container and also underneath the container. So that's what the padding top and the padding bottom does. I'm going to give the container a background color of blue, and I've made the color white. So that means the text in the container will have a white color. So I'm going to save this file. The next thing I need to do is to link this CSS file to the index.html file. So to do that, I'm just going to create a link. To create a link using Emmet is very easy. Just type in the word link and then press tab, and that creates the link. So in between the quotes, I just need to add the location of the file. Because the file is in the same directory, which is the CDN directory as the index.html file, all I need to do is include the name of the file, which is called style.css. So I'm going to save this document. As I save it, you should see some changes. So you can see the browser here. Just going to bring this a bit so you can see. Now we can see the container properly. So the default container is a responsive container, and it is also a fixed width container. What this means is that the maximum width will change at each breakpoint. In order to see the breakpoints in action, just press F12 on your keyboard. F12 on your keyboard will give you the Chrome Developer Tool. This is the Chrome Developer Tool. I'm going to illustrate how the default container works. With the default container, it is responsive and it has a fixed width. What this means is that the maximum width will change at each breakpoint. So at the moment, the breakpoint I'm at is the SM breakpoint, which is a breakpoint that is 576 pixels or less. So as I drag the browser, you can see the pixel moving. It's still within the SM breakpoint, and you can see here there are no gaps. The container is still maximum width, but as I continue to move to expand it, notice that I've now exceeded the SM breakpoint, which is 576 pixels or less, and you can see we now have a gap here, which means it is no longer maximum width. So the maximum width will change at each breakpoint. So as we move to the next breakpoint, which is the MD or medium breakpoint, which is a pixel level of 768 pixels or less. So as I continue to move past that breakpoint, you notice the gaps is increasing. So I've exceeded the medium breakpoint. I'm now moving to the large. Large is 992 pixels or less. So as we continue to move through the breakpoint, you can see the gaps is getting wider from the edge. So the maximum width changes at each breakpoint. To exit the Chrome Developer Tools, just click on the X, and that will return the browser to the full page. So I have shown you how the default container works, and the maximum width changes with the breakpoint of each device. So as it narrows down, this is a small breakpoint, and you see there are no gaps. But as the breakpoint changes, you notice the gaps increases. In this video, I created a basic default Bootstrap container. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.